Hey guys, what's up? It's Allison, and today I'm going to be talking about the bad points of living in the inaka, or the countryside of Japan. So before the Japanese nationalists come for me, I love Japan. I live here, I love the inaka, but there's a lot of things I don't love about it too. So let's just get right on into it with number one. It's really difficult to make friends my age. So I'm in my mid-20s, and the population demographics of the countryside in Japan, if you don't know, is quite skewed towards the elderly. There's like a ton of people who just move out of the countryside once they're old enough and they don't move back. Well, this is, has a ton of problems on its own, but relevant to me personally is that there's not that many people to be friends with. There are some people like my age who live there, but honestly most of them are married and have children already, so they don't really have time to hang out with me. And the other people who are my age who are single are basically the teachers who've been sent to the countryside and forced to work there, because that's how like Japanese teaching culture or whatever works. So basically it's really hard to meet Japanese people who are my age. I did have a few, but actually they were all kind of older than me, the ones I did hang out with. And the teacher friends I had who were about my age, they were too busy because they do a lot of overtime here, and on the weekends they'd go back home to visit their parents. So if you're fine with having friends that are 20 plus years older than you, then that's good. And I do enjoy it. It's just, a bit of balance would be nice. So number two, there's like no anonymity in the countryside, especially when you look like this. If you are of like East Asian descent and that you kind of like blend in a bit more with Japanese people, then you might not have this problem as much. But if you look anything like anything else, then you're gonna stand out. Old people, they turn their heads 180 to look at you as you walk down the street. Your kids are everywhere. I cannot go to the grocery store without seeing at least one. That doesn't mean they talk to me, but they'll like tug on their mom's, their mom's clothes and be like, oh, look mom, it's Harry. And then they won't talk to me. But basically, people know who you are. Like, people come up to me and they're like, oh, are you Ali Sensei from this elementary school? I was like, yeah. Why do you know this? Why do you know so much about me? But that's just how it is. It's just common. And it can be nice sometimes, but it kind of grates on you after a few months, especially because like you kind of feel like you can't even go outside wearing like casual clothing or like without makeup on sometimes, just because you're going to be seen and you're going to be remembered for what you look like. And in line with that, you can't really do anything to, I don't know, like out there, Vogue or anything. Like I wouldn't go drinking in the streets. Well, I wouldn't do that anyway, but basically you're just judged for every little thing you do that is outside of your apartment. It's nice, but it's also very, very hard to live like that. So the next one, it's pretty good for the first few months, but after a while you get tired of it. It's that there's kind of no food that's not Japanese. I was lucky enough to have an Indian and Chinese restaurant in town, but other than that, there's nothing really happening. Even at the supermarket, you can't really buy that many ingredients for a lot of things you might want to make. My town didn't have any tortillas at all. Only one supermarket did, an hour away. So there goes tacos. Like, I like Japanese food, but I don't just want to eat Japanese food, you know what I mean? I like the variety of food that's available in the cities and, back at home in America. Especially when you're forced to eat Japanese food, like really Japanese food for kyushoku every day. Ugh. So the next one is that you kind of are probably gonna need a car. There are like different levels of inaka, so maybe some inakas you don't need a car, but like most of them, like the ones that are really inaka, you need a car. Even if there's public transport, like my town did have a train technically, but it only came like every 2 hours and the station was quite far already. So driving in the inaka, like that's really no problem. It's like super easy. Seriously, it's really easy. It's just the fact that you have to drive and that you have to upkeep and maintain a car while, you know, people in the city don't have to. This isn't a Japan problem, it's just a general countryside problem. But you know, like a lot of people, they talk about when they go to Japan they're gonna like lose all this weight because, you know, you walk everywhere. But in the countryside, it's really just not that true because you have to drive everywhere. I gained so much weight because I was driving all the time, every day. I only could walk to a convenience store, and even that I was super fortunate to be able to do that. So the last one, perhaps the most important one, is that it's really inconvenient. This really also applies to a lot of the things I've already mentioned, you know, inconvenient for not being able to buy groceries that you want, not being able to go places you want, not being able to just buy things you want. Really just every sense of the word kind of applies. You know, even in my inaka, we didn't have a Uniqlo or anything, so if you wanted that, you had to drive an hour. And like these things, they seem really small, but once they keep adding up, it's just kind of frustrating. And I really do get why people are moving out. I mean, of course there's so many good things, but the inconveniences of life, especially for a foreigner who, you know, I really appreciate an international food selection and, you know, things like that. And you just can't get them. Because there are clothing stores, they're just not for my age group, which is reflective of the population, etc, etc. But, you know, even the highway was an hour drive to get to on the local roads. If I wanted to buy any furniture, little things, I had to wait till the weekend. Really, that's just the whole thing here. You have to wait for the weekend to drive to the city to get anything you want, basically. Which, it can be fine, but you know, basically this just means on the weekdays, I just go home and do kind of nothing. Because it's so inconvenient to do anything. Like, yeah, I had opportunities to do things, but they all involved me driving almost an hour after school, and I wouldn't get home until like 10 o'clock. And I just don't want to live like that, I guess. Of course, for some people, they won't mind this. That's good for you. And actually, if you have like a family, I don't think these inconveniences are gonna show themselves as much, especially if you're a Japanese family, because then you're just buying the Japanese groceries. It's not that big of a problem. But for us foreigners, it really does all like kind of mount up, I guess, build up. But overall, I do like living in the countryside. Check out my last video if you haven't seen it. I like it. But at this age, my mid-20s, I just don't want to be there right now, I guess. So I only stayed for 2 years, but I can definitely see how people do live their whole lives there. You know, how foreigners, ALTs will get there and they'll never move out. Because there are a lot of great places, and all these inakas are different. So some aren't going to have all the inconveniences that I just talked about. Some will have way more. So it's all a balance, as it is with city living. There's no perfect place to live. But if you're coming over as an ALT, then yes, yes, yes. I recommend living in the countryside. The inconveniences don't mean that much in the long run if you're only there for a few years. Alright you guys, this is going to wrap up the video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below if you have any questions. My name is Allison. I'll see you next time.